Welcome to On Your Own Terms. I'm Patty Talbot, and this is the place where we learn together what it takes to change the world on our own terms and in our own special ways. Today, I'm excited to have with me a new friend, Vickie Lanthier. Vickie and I met in a writer's workshop where we are both working on books that we hope will make a difference in the world. Vickie's book is especially interesting because it comes out of her unique background in the military and her experience with what happens when you are face to face with life-threatening situations. Tomorrow is never guaranteed. So her story reminds us that we must live our lives fully and joyfully while we're here to be the best human beings that we can be. Tune in now to learn from Changemaker Vickie Lanthier. Vickie, I'm so glad you're here.
I am from a small town in rural Ontario, and I always grew up in this small town. And even though I love small town life, my growing up actually happened once I joined the military and the adventures within the military. That's where all my growing and sense of self started to emerge. I spent 14 years in the military, and I joined on a lark because when I was a kid, my little brother came home one day and he came home bragging that he joined Army Cadets and he got to shoot a gun. And he was my little brother, and I couldn't let him one-up me like that. So I joined Army Cadets the very next day, loved it, and lo and behold, he quit 2 weeks later. So here I was in this natural stream to join the military anyways. And he went on and did his things, but that ended up being a blessing in disguise, because when I went through high school in my small town, and you start dreaming of what the future is going to be like, everyone else seemed to have answers and what they wanted to go to university for and all these big lofty dreams, and I didn't. So I'm very thankful that I was jealous of my little brother and opted to discover military life, because I learned in that environment that I was capable and that I could make big things happen. Within my first 6 years, I deployed in response to an ice storm at home. I deployed overseas. I was in a tank accident. I went with our prime minister to Guatemala. I received an award from Princess Anne. It was a very jam-packed first 6 years. And I went from thinking I could do nothing in a small town and not knowing where I was going to an environment that had all the possibilities, and learned very quickly that if I decided to do something, no matter if it was meant for me or not, I could do it. So my people ended up being those people. I like people that are open to failure and trying big things and big ideas and aren't afraid of hard situations. Those are the people that I resonate the most with. I don't know if it's like midlife creeping up on me, but the issues that are most important to me is that we're alive while we're alive. I don't want adversity, like trauma and crisis and hardship and the struggles that we go through. I don't want it to paralyze us and stop us from really living. When I was in the military, of course, I've gone on multiple deployments. Multiple friends have lost their lives. We saw different tragedies overseas. And my way of honoring that, or my thought in getting through that, was that I better darn well live a great life because they never got the chance to finish theirs. And if we're alive, whether it's because you believe God gifted you this life or because you're living it for others that didn't get to finish theirs, I think it's our duty and responsibility to live well while we have a good life. And that's my North Star. And that's the ideation that I would like others to encompass as well, instead of staying paralyzed by the everyday struggles that sometimes we place on ourselves. So in my own life, that means having a boatload of curiosity. I listen to all the podcasts. I read 2-3 books a week on average. I went back to university and took a Bachelor of Science degree in nursing, so that I could have a greater understanding of health and science and how we interact with each other. I also created a website, a hiking resource website called girlgonegood.com, with the intent of building a community that encourages people to get outside more. So I found that we were, especially up here in Ontario, we close ourselves off in the winter, and we are susceptible to getting the blues in those winter months. And people stopped hiking. But hiking in the winter months was my favorite time to hike. One, there's no bugs. And two, if we still get outdoors, it just lessens our susceptibility to the blues during that time frame. So I created this environment and community, and through that community was able to donate over $27,000 to mental health and veteran charities to further pay it forward. I do believe that we have more in common than we do apart from each other. I started traveling when I was on my own when I was 17, 18, and have traveled the world since, of course. But when it comes to listening to others, I think it's the listening portion that we're really bad at and that we need to nurture. I think we need to meet people where they're at. If we start to force our viewpoints, it's a good way to get nowhere and shut down really innovative thinking and connection. I enjoy finding a commonality and then figuring out a way to enrich that commonality so that we could open different conversations on change and compromise. And if I think of some good examples, I would say they would come from taking that nursing degree and having patients of different backgrounds in the hospital and different temperaments and different cultures. And sometimes we'd run into a struggle with what healthcare deemed appropriate for the patient and what the patient was accepting or not accepting of a treatment. And there was never a time where I couldn't walk in there and talk with the patient long enough until we found a commonality, and really honing in on that. Oh, you like this television show? Oh, you do this in your culture. We do this in my culture. And if I just honed in on that long enough, then all of a sudden we could reach that agreement that would be best for the patient coming out of that room. And I think that is an art form that we need to nurture. I think there's no such thing as a difficult patient. My poor nursing friends are going to disagree with me, and I love them to death, but it's just a lack of time to spend and understand and reach a commonality with that patient. So I think if you have a difficult patient, most likely, A, there's not enough time to spend with them, and B, we didn't find the commonality with them. I want it to be where more people recognize that they're capable and that no dream is too small, too big while we're here. Like, I just want everyone to realize the full realm of possibility and not limit ourselves with our bias against ourselves. So I try to attack that in a few different ways. And one is by hosting a big life newsletter that I send out every week or two, encouraging, taking a look at adversity and different struggles, and also encouraging our aliveness. Two would be writing a book, finally, tentatively titled Little Cuts, A Big Life, but I'm sure that'll change because that is the ebbs and flows of book writing. But basically, the book will help share that adversity isn't running the show, you are. And by the end of it, you'll be able to deal with the adversity that life throws your way, basically creating the break that you can't catch. The third would be, I currently give talks on mass casualty incidents, and this is really in my heart of hearts something that I enjoy doing. I give the talks primarily in the States to educators and athletic trainers. The talk itself is on how to mitigate the impacts of experiencing a mass casualty incident. Mass casualty incident is usually when the resources and the amount of casualty far exceeds the resources available and the expertise available. So say school shootings or fires or anything of that level, and there's just not enough resources on hand. I think there's some very important lessons and actions that we could take today in order to mitigate those impacts, because the elephant in the room is that we all train for the mechanics of the event, but we don't prepare ourselves now. We just wait for the event. We prepare for the event. We have lots of resources for after the event, but we have no resources and actions to take prior. So those are the 6 actions that I like sharing in those talks, empowering the individual to have some sense of control over their future experiences. And I think that's important. So ideally, I would love those talks to be free down the line and available to educators and athletic trainers. So when it comes to mass casualty incidents, which are becoming more and more the norm in the States nowadays, it's heartbreaking, and I'd rather not give the talk at all, to be honest. But since we're here, I want to empower folks to do something now. And it's something that we don't realize we can do. So there's little things like reducing our allostatic load, which is the stress load on ourselves and our systems. So that would look like maybe taking care of past traumas and crisis, reducing our everyday stress load, going to talk therapy, going to peer-to-peer support, seeking out your spiritual guidance from your pastor, from your minister, from your whatever group and community that you're a part of. It could be things like increasing your health in push-pull exercises and load-bearing exercises, so that when an event happens, I know we run on adrenaline, but on top of that, we're physically prepared to deal with the event at hand, right? We can drag someone so many meters. We can carry someone X amount of distance. It would be identifying and taking care of our values and belief systems so that we don't end up in a state of moral injury. Mass casualty incident means that we far exceeded the resources available. So if you have X amount of people injured and the injuries are all the same, we know how to triage. But if they're the same, who are you going to treat first? And how do you deal with that, with your moral beliefs and your values afterwards? How do you resolve and process that within yourself? And then there's other things like understanding our baseline behavior now, so that after the event, we can notice changes in our behavior and note that maybe all of a sudden I'm sleeping with the fan on, or maybe I've stopped going out to my community events. So talking with our partnered and loved ones to notice those baseline behaviors. And then there's a few other actions in between. So all in all, I have 6 actions that people can proactively take now to help mitigate and reduce the impact of their future experience. That's it. I think that's one of the things that we sometimes get wrong in modern society. And we operate at our maximums instead of doing less better and building our buffers in those 8 dimensions of well-being. Why can't we go through seasons? We don't all need to have a side hustle. Our kid doesn't have to be in hockey and soccer and art class. We don't have to have 10 jobs financially if we could just spend a little less. So sometimes if we just operate on seasons, if we want to be a book writer for this 10 years, but maybe a skydiver in the next 10 years, and maybe just a stellar grandmother in the next 10 years, why don't we do less and operate in seasons so that we can focus on having those buffers, like a financial buffer, like our health and well-being buffer, like our social support buffer. And then when adversity strikes, the impact is less, or we're more able to deal with it. There is nothing that pains me more than to see people either stuck in their hurt or stuck in that as is state where they're, this is just life. It is what it is. This is just part of getting older. This is my lot in life. I can't change it. Because the reality is, I heard this really great quote or read it actually from Jay Shetty in his newest book. And it said, your current decisions, good or bad, determine your future experience. And there is never a point in life where we're not able to make decisions in our current state to impact our future state. And I think we just need that empowered control back in our lives. I would love us all to just take a minute and think back of different challenges and experiences that we've had in our lives and how you got through them, and just remind yourself that you're capable in those areas of life. Sometimes we forget, and it's easy to forget. And I would also love you to join me. I have a big life newsletter that goes out every week or two. It really takes a look at how we could celebrate our aliveness, and has different resources and worksheets, or an amazing podcast that I listen to. But we have those big conversations there. You could catch it on my website, which is vickiemlanthier.com. So please sign up for the newsletter there. I would love to hear from you. You could always reply to the newsletter, and I will always respond. You could also find me on Instagram at Vickie M. Lanthier.
Thank you, Vickie. You've given us so much to think about. As a lifelong educator who has been in schools facing traumatic situations and very dangerous situations, I can tell you that your message was personally intriguing, inspiring, and a little bit unsettling to me, because of course I've worked in the area of mental health and education my whole career, but I didn't ever quite think of it the way you're framing it, about how important it is for us to have within ourselves the buildup of the resources, physical, emotional, mental, psychological, and spiritual strength to help ourselves not only live quality lives, but be ready for the most difficult and dire situations that might face us. So thank you for your message. I hope our audience will follow your work, get in touch, and take every opportunity to learn from your example of living life today in the best way we can. So we're ready for whatever happens next. Folks, I'm sure you can easily see how Changemaker Vickie Lanthier's life and work exemplifies the 16 characteristics that all changemakers have in common. I want to particularly today highlight the beingness quadrant, or what we sometimes call the homegrown quadrant. Can you see how by taking good care of your beingness, your physical body, your mental health, your physical health, and your spiritual health as an individual being and as part of a community can help to strengthen you to be ready to face whatever comes your way? Vickie's work also is an example of working for goal number 3, good health and well-being in the world, so that you can show up and tackle the other 17 of those goals in partnership with others. Thank you, Vickie, for being with us. Next week, we will feature another change-making woman showing up and changing the world on her own terms and in her own special way. In the meantime, may you be grounded in your beingness, guided in your doingness, generous in your connectedness, and inspired in your reflectiveness, so you can consciously change the world on your own terms. I'm Patty Talbot. I'm always learning, and I know you are too.